Hi, this is Jim, W6LG, your ham radio Elmer on YouTube. Welcome to my radio room here in Rockland, California. If you watched some of the coverage of the Hurricane Ian that occurred about 2 weeks ago, I'm recording this video October 9th, 2022. And at that time, you're thinking, I probably should get my ham radio license. I'd like to help out. This is the time to do it. Right now, go sign up, hamradioprep.com. Go for all 3 licenses. I know that that's a huge request, but at the very minimum, get the tech and the general license, and you'll understand why I'm making that recommendation when you watch this video. And it basically comes down to having privileges on HF high frequencies, HF frequencies, as opposed to just the handy-talky UHF, VHF frequencies, which are pretty much all you get with a technician class license. There is an exception, but not much. So if you thought about it, now is the time to do it. Go ahead and sign up, hamradioprep.com. You won't regret it. And if you use my call sign, W6LG, they will... in the discount, they got like a discount box. You put in my call sign and you get an extra 20% off. One of the things that struck me as a terrible situation was some folks being interviewed who had lost everything, and they had had no communication with FEMA or county or city or state officials. During a disaster, I've spoken about this to some groups. There appears to be, and I'm not an expert, but there appears to be about 3 stages that occur. The first one is when it is just hell for folks. Could be the hurricane, could be the fire, could be the flood, could be the earthquake, whatever it is. They are in a world of hurt. There are fires across the street, floodwaters are rising, as it did here, when we had one of those 1,000-year floods, which occurred every few years. That's where the police and fire and emergency folks, could be from a hospital, could be the guy who is an EMT, runs to the situation. They go right at it. They're there to help. Put everything on the line. Literally pick up people and carry them out of those situations if they can get them out. That's not where ham radio or emergency communications takes place. We're not first responders. What ham radio operators are is preppers, whether we like it or not, whether we like that title. Not the kind that you might see in some crazy YouTube videos, but the kind that is setting up in a park every so often, putting up an antenna, battery-operated transceiver, and talking to the world, literally around the world, from a park bench and a really simple wire antenna. They do that as a practice to learn. It has to do with how a signal propagates around the planet, what frequencies are good at that time of day, what are not. And it changes with time of day, and it changes almost daily. There are changes with the seasons. So that's the second phase. Is the first phase, fire people and EMTs and cops, policemen are doing everything to help people. And then after that, after the storm blows over, there's a few days where it's still huge problems for the folks who live there. They may have lost everything. And that's what I saw on television. There were maybe 5 or 6 people being interviewed by a reporter. The folks that were being interviewed had nothing left. On top of that, and over overarching problem was no one had talked to them. No FEMA, no county, no city, nobody from emergency services. The thing that struck me and what I wanted to talk to you about was the folks that were living in this community where everything was gone. They had nothing left. They had no way to communicate. So I got a hold of one of these, and this is a GMRS, find this camera, a GMRS radio. There's a plastic cover I haven't peeled off yet. It is cast aluminum. It's ribbed. It's like a heat sink. The speaker has a plastic cover over it. It's waterproof. It meets a standard it meets a standard where it can be called waterproof. Now, we know that you don't want to drop something like this into the water, but if you're in a situation where it's just pouring down rain, this thing would probably survive. It is really well built. I've turned it on. I've got to get a license. I haven't transmitted with it. And I'll also show you what comes with this. The company name is Reteviz, Reteviz. And this is an RB86, reading it without my glasses as best I can. The transceiver, I don't think it can be made any better than it is. I think they've done everything they can do to make this a really handy device that someone could use in their home, perhaps in a vehicle. It comes with a mounting bracket to mount it in a vehicle. It comes with the wires. By the way, even the connector, as you might expect, is waterproof. It's a special ribbed connector that slides into here, and I think you could put in a bucket of water and it would stay dry on the inside. Is there a way to use that along with ham radio? Here's what I'm wondering. Here's what I'd like to hear from you. Let's say in a community, in that, of those folks that were being interviewed, none of them could obtain a ham radio license. It just isn't in the cards for them. But could they work either a family radio service, FRS radio, and communicate to someone who has this? And I'll describe this as this device being in the hub or the middle of handy talkies around the perimeter. Would that work where the lady who's living in literally in a trailer, and she's on oxygen and the power's off and she needs help, if she grabbed a handy talkie that was just programmed, locked up, all you had to do was pick it up, press the button, and talk, could she communicate to somebody who has one of these things? If the lady who has no power can manipulate a handy talkie, and that's the question, and gets a hold of her next door neighbor or the neighbor 2 or 3 houses up and says, I need help, could that person then communicate to somebody that has one of these things? This then either communicates with a ham radio operator, and I'll tell you why it has to go that way, to make the distance to the state capitol, the city hall, the county hall of administration, whatever. In the county where I lived, there was considerable distance from the emergency headquarters to many of the residences. Why ham radio? Where would ham radio fit? My thought was HF, high frequency. Most ham radio operators have figured out that certain times of the day in general can go a certain distance, like maybe you want to talk to the state capitol. So ham radio could have a role in helping out those poor folks who have been left behind. Some of the groups I met with, and I've discussed it with them, we've sort of bounced the ideas around, One thing I don't want to do is assign blame to the old lady who did not evacuate. She may not drive. She may not have had the ability to evacuate. She may have tried to evacuate and wasn't able to get out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is she's there. The hurricane, the fire, the earthquake is over, and she's stuck. So I don't want to blame her or him for something. I want to help him or her. What can we do? What do you think? What idea do you have? Could that person use a handy-talkie FRS or GMRS if it was locked in a way that the frequency was set? All she had to do was take it out of the holder and press the button. So let's take a look at Amazon.com. That transceiver is about $120, $130, and it comes with everything you need to set it up. At that price, it's a bargain. There's no question. It appears to be a solid, well-built transceiver or radio. But what about the guy that's living in a fifth wheel and he needs help? He may not be able to change channels or do anything other than take it out of the holder. So let's look at Amazon.com and see what they have. See what this is. This is yellow, so it would stand out. Waterproof again, so that's nice. Let's go back to this price. So it is $17 roughly a piece. Did I do that right? Yeah. Okay. 1.4 milliamp hour USB charger and 3 AA batteries. That would make it easy to, so you get extra lithium ion AA batteries, keep those on site. So that's a nice feature. Let's see if I can slide this down. It's got a weather channel, dual watch. I don't know if we want that. Vox might work. Vox means voice operated. So it may be that the person who has it would turn it on and just talk into it. That might have a big benefit. So, boy, I don't think it gets much better than this. It's got a built-in flashlight too. Wow. So, what do you think? If in that trailer park, those folks had an FRS radio and they communicated to somebody who had the GMRS radio who was able to make it work. It's not hard. For some, it may be impossible, but it's not difficult. And then that person communicates via ham radio to county OES or city OES or whatever. Tell me what you think. Is it a crazy idea to think that we can give or they can buy FRS radios, communicate to somebody who has a larger radio, and can either pass that on to a ham radio operator who may be very much out of the area, but is set up to communicate with the area? It would take a lot of planning to do it. There are some negatives, and some of those were brought up in the meetings that I held with other people. Tell me what you think. Keep it concise, maybe bullet points. What do you think? Can we somehow help those poor folks who, for one reason or another, are there after the fire, the flood, the earthquake? How can we communicate? How can we get them to communicate to us what they need, where they are? Hey, we're over here. You missed us. That kind of thing. Let me know what you think. Bullet points, short answers, long paragraphs. Long stories are not going to be read by the average person, but I will try to read everything. I'm not going to respond to every comment, but I think it's time for us to look at what we can do as ham radio operators for those of us that have a license. Those who don't have a license and are capable of getting one, go for it. Go for it at the very minimum, the general license, hamradioprep.com. And look at FRS and GMRS radios and tell me what you think. I'm Jim, W6LG, your ham radio Elmer here on YouTube, and I'm in my radio room in Rockland, California. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. If you haven't subscribed, please do that.